Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Blaine, and in just a little bit, we are going to participate in one of the most beloved sacraments of the church, communion. But before we do that, I want to tell you a little story. When I was 9 years old, I knew that all I ever wanted to be was an actor. And so I found and auditioned for a community theater production of The Wizard of Oz. And I wasn't old enough for any of the major roles, but I was cast as one of the Munchkins. And not just any Munchkin, Lollipop Guild #1. That's right. Thank you. And I actually have a photo. Would you like to see it? Okay, let's show it. There we go. Okay, so there we are, and that is me. The one with all the lipstick. My mom did my makeup, and I'm pretty sure she wanted a girl. So here's the thing, though. The Lollipop Guild was great, but I always wanted to play the Tin Man. Now, if you don't know anything about the story of the Tin Man, he doesn't start out the way that you see him in the movie that we all know and love. He actually has very humble beginnings as a simple woodsman by the name of Nick Chopper. Now, the story goes that he falls in love with a servant girl. And she's the servant girl of a very old woman. Well, the old woman doesn't want her servant girl distracted from her work, so she goes to the Wicked Witch of the East, asking for a spell to be put on Nick. And so for the price of a couple of cows and a sheep, the Wicked Witch of the East enchants Nick's axe. Now, I have to warn you, the rest of the story is a bit gruesome, for as time went on, this enchanted axe would chop off one of Nick's limbs, one by one, until his entire body was made completely of tin. Now, his heart couldn't survive in a tin body, and so he fell out of love. Evil had won. Now, we don't live in a world of enchanted axes or wicked witches, but we do live in a world where evil wants to destroy us limb for limb. And as I've been contemplating why I'm so drawn to the story of the Tin Man, I think it's because I realize all the ways in which I have assisted evil in chopping off my own limbs from time to time. In fact, I think there were times in my life where the only thing left was a metal body and a barely beating heart. Now, I don't know about you, but I dismember myself way more times than I would care to admit. The lust I have in my eyes, the lies that I tell, the way that I'm selfish instead of generous. Like what Shauna was talking about last week, I gossip behind my friend's back instead of having the hard conversation. Now I'm going to ask the service host to come down and just hold in place for a moment, because I want to tell you another story. On the night that Jesus was betrayed, he gathered all of his closest friends together, all of whom could have been held guilty of assisting evil and chopping off their own limbs in their own unique ways. But he gathered them all together. He took a loaf of bread, he broke it, and he said, "This is my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." And then later that night, in that same way, after supper, he took a cup of wine and he said, "This cup is the new covenant in my blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me." Now, Jesus knew that in a matter of hours, he would be broken. He would be figuratively dismembered by us and by evil. And so putting himself in our shoes, the Christ King says, "Break me. Dismember me, just as you have dismembered yourselves." And then perhaps the most shocking thing of all, he says to do this in remembrance of me. Now, certainly he's asking us, not to forget him. Certainly, he is asking us not to forget that his death is an example that to live, you must die. But his choice of words is remarkable. And it's almost as if he is saying, as I go to the cross, as my body is broken, as I am dismembered, as my blood is poured out, remember me as I want to remember you. Do you hear that? Remember me as I want to remember. Put back together what evil has sought to tear apart. You see, Jesus allowed himself to be torn apart so that we might be made whole in the places that we have been dismembered by evil and by our own doing. I'm going to ask the service host to begin passing out the elements. Now, if you're not a Christ follower, you can just go ahead, let the plate pass by. There's no judgment in this space, and we are all in different places of the journey. But if you do take the elements, just take them, the bread and the cup, and just hold them and contemplate on these questions for the next couple of minutes. On the night Jesus was betrayed, he took the bread and he said, "This is my body, broken for you. Do this in remembrance of me." Now, as a way of saying yes to Christ's work of remembering us, let's eat. And then in that same way, After supper, he took the cup and he said, "This cup is the covenant in my new blood. Do this whenever you drink it in remembrance of me." As a way of saying yes to Christ's work in remembering us, let's drink. Now will you pray with me? God, we thank you for your sacrifice and for its healing power in our lives. We admit and we confess the ways in which we have assisted evil in dismembering ourselves. We ask that you would help us to remember you and your sacrifice as you work to remember us. And everybody said, amen.